So you want to be a YouTube creator. You want to report on true crime, or you want to do investigative journalism as a whole. Where do you start? How do you get the information? Well, you've come to the right place. Today, I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, so to start off with, I want to make this very clear up front. Depending upon where you live in the United States, it's going to be easier and it's going to be harder depending upon how your courts are actually structured. If you're in a larger metropolitan area, it's a lot easier than say a smaller rural area and say like the Appalachian Mountains or something like that. But most of this information you can find online and obtain through record searches online. You don't even have to physically leave your living room to go do this research. So for what I'm talking about today and what I'm going to cover, I'm going to use Christopher Watts and the murder of his family and his wife and children. I'm going to use that as the example for why and how you can find this information. So, how did I, as an individual who is not a reporter, how did I obtain information about Christopher Watts and the case, factual information, before it actually was released in the media? How did I possibly do that? Well, there's two things that you need to understand. One, I have spent my entire life networking and trying to find a missing loved one of myself, all right, and my family. We have made a complete Rolodex, and yes, the old paper Rolodexes. I've made a complete Rolodex of just contacts, people we've reached out to and talked to around the world as we were trying to find my loved one. So we had a source material already to do research with. People we could reach out to in certain areas. Hey, you live in Alabama, you live in Nebraska, you live in Chicago, you live in Washington, D.C. People we could reach out to, not just to anybody, but these people work in law enforcement, they work in the court system, they work in in areas that we would need to contact someone about, trying to get information from factual sources. So that's the first thing. We have developed a Rolodex of confidential informants across the United States, some in Canada, some in the UK, but mostly here in the United States. So how can you do the same thing? Well, it never hurts to talk to people. And the one thing that we learned really early on years ago, when you talk to someone and you want to use them as an informant or someone to get information from, number one, never burn your bridges. Don't go right at them full tilt and say, hey, give me what I need here, and then never talk to them again. Develop a relationship with them. Always keep in contact with them. Remember the simple things like birth dates, anniversaries, things that are important. Learn things about them. Make friends. Basically what you're doing with all your informants across the world or wherever you need them. All right? And maybe contact them and ask them about something simple that is not besides your case. So you're going to need them down the road for information on this case. But you might ask them about this case over here, which you really don't care about, and you're like, all right, whatever. You throw that away. But you always keep them, and in the loop. Hey, I heard that there's a case that, where they're looking at the county official over here, who may have misappropriated funds. That's great. But I was wondering, can you tell me, who do I contact about getting a parking enforcement to take care of these cars that are in front of the school? It's simple. So you ask them about that when you really want to know about that. So you start off. You get what I'm saying, though? You have to develop it, the case. All right, so back to Christopher Watts. How did I get the information on Christopher Watts, and how did I do the research on a case like Christopher Watts before? Now, you can use this for anything. You could decide that you want to do it about a series of videos or whatever your channel is about on code enforcement for dog parks, whatever you want. You can use basically the same techniques for that, and you don't necessarily have to use it for true crime or reporting on tragic events like Christopher Watts and what he did. All right, so first thing, district and superior courts are going to be your number one most reliable sources. Now, depending upon where you live in the United States, this only works in the United States. It doesn't work in Canada and anywhere else, because here we have the Freedom of Information Act. And as long as it is a public record, you have the right to request a copy of that public record. District Court and Superior Court in Weld County, in the case of Christopher Watts, I contacted the District Court and I asked if for all information that Christopher Watts came up in. Has he been sued? Has he had a run-in with the law? This is all public record because they print it not only in the newspaper, but they also keep a record of it on in their database. And for a fee, yes, there is a fee in a lot of these cases. You can request a district court record. The only thing that Christopher Watts came up with in this entire thing was the Homeowners Association lawsuit. And that wasn't, and all it said was there was a lawsuit that was filed that had Shanahan and Christopher Watts on it. So this wasn't all that much of a help in the beginning, because that's all that came up before the his plea bargain and everything else came up. But that was the only thing that came up originally. Next, newspapers and court websites. Now, you'd think the court websites would be the Superior Court and District Court. When it comes to crime news, arrests that do not lead to convictions, they still keep a record of the person's name on the website, so you can search by case number. What you'll need to do any of this, well, county website, Superior and District, you're going to need the person's name, you're going to need their birth date, you're going to need their last known address, you're going to need to know their race. And if you can get more information like employer, information about possible names that are connected to that individual, it's going to help. And in a lot of cases, the county website is going to have a form you can fill out, and then it'll tell you it's going to be $35 to do this district court search. It's going to cost you $65 to do the Superior Court one. But this one may be free, may not be free. Again, it all depends upon your municipality. But it'll have a record of anything that comes up. Even if it doesn't lead to an arrest or conviction, it will have an actual piece of connection to these other cases. Well, on the Superior Court one, on the website, all it said was Christopher Watts, and then it had a case number. It did not, and that's where a lot of people have speculated online and didn't. But I know every single one of them never did the research, because they found this information online on the county website that had Christopher Watts and Shanahan's name on it, and they assumed that was a divorce proceeding. But we all know that we've all known that was the Homeowners Association. But they saw, well, it's family court or whatever. No, it was district court, not family court. That's another completely different, ball wax. And in a lot of cases, when it comes to family court, you're never going to get records released to you unless you are someone who is either connected to the case or you have a damn good reason to. And you're an attorney working on a case or something like that. Court records, for when it comes to family court, are sealed. They do not release that information, especially if there are juveniles involved. All right. Newspapers. Public information. Let's just hypothetically say you get in your car tonight and you drive down the road and you get arrested for DUI. That's going to end up in the newspaper, crime docket somewhere. The newspaper is going to find out about that arrest. and they're going to put it in their archives, and they're going to have a record of it in their newspaper. Even if you're not convicted, they're going to say so and so was arrested on Highway 7, in a suspected DUI. That's going to be in the newspaper. All right. So number one, court, district court, and superior court website for the county, because they're going to keep records even if it wasn't a conviction. These two may only keep records of what that leads to a conviction, but they will have records of when you search just generally by the name. All right, so I should probably back up here. How did we get the information on Christopher Watts before he actually took the conviction? All right, really simple, and then I'm going to break this down really quickly for you. One, we learned the information about who was missing. Shanann and the girls were missing from the newscast and from the police department's BOLO. Be on the lookout. That's what BOLO stands for. All right, be on the lookout for these people, this car, these individuals, and their descriptions. But we learned the address from that BOLO. So we had Christopher Watts. We learned the address. So we got that piece of information that we need for here. We learned his age because it was in the interview with the local television station, and we also learned the employer for Christopher Watts, his current employer, for the oil company. We learned that from the interview. So we got his race. Obviously, we can see him. We have his address. We have his last employer. And his age was released. It said right on the bottom of the screen on the one interview, his age. Christopher Lee Watts, 40, whatever the hell his actual age is, I don't care. But it had his actual age there. Missing Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and that she was pregnant. Didn't list Nico. It just said that she was pregnant on the one interview. You can go back and watch them all. I'm not trying to hide anything from you. I'm just trying to tell you how to get the information. So all the information between the BOLO and the news interview, what you had to do this search right here. Same thing that I did. That gave me this, and I was here already. So when I was here doing the search, that gave me I had enough information to do this search and this search on Christopher Watts. Not that hard, is it? But if you spend even a couple of minutes doing a research on the website here, you're going to find actual factual information that is going to support, other things that were coming up. Oh, they said that they were looking here, they were looking there. Well, what about the other things? In the case, did we find anything else on the website? Yeah, there's things that led to other searches off of it. Use my trusty, dusty little rabbit here. So what do we have so far? We know his name. We know his age. We know his race. We know his employer. We know his address. We know the 5 most important things about Christopher Watts right now. Before we knew he was actually guilty, we knew those 5 things. So we'll write down a big number 5 here. We know the key 5. This is 5 out of 7 things that we really need to know about Christopher Watts. The number 6 is, did he do it and commit this actual crime? And number 7 is, did he have an accomplice? We don't know 6 and 7 yet, but we know the first 5 things about it. I guess you could throw in there, the 6 would be Shanann and the girls were missing, and the 7th would be, did he do it, and 8th would be, did he have an accomplice? But we're boiling it down to the absolute minimum here. So we know the key 5. All right? We know the most important 5. With this, you can do external searches. You can use the same 5 pieces of information that you have to search back home where they came from. And I did that as well. That gave me connections to other cases from their home state that led me to other people. Because if you use this same 5 and you search there where they lived at before, they sold their place, well, Shanahan's home, sold it there, and then moved out to Colorado, you'll find not only where they came from, the exact address, it's in the court records, because again, property rights and everything else, it's public information. You can go, if you want to find out how much money your neighbor owes on his property taxes, you have the right, if you live in the United States, to go down to the county assessor's office, and you can have them look up that parcel, and they will tell you exactly how much property taxes are owed on it. If you live in a small community, and they're going to be quickly, connecting the dots here, like, hey, Sue or Samantha or Jonathan or whoever you are, you're being a little snoopy. All right, but they're gonna. If you live in a bigger community like Seattle or Minneapolis or Los Angeles, they're not going to know who the hell you are, and they're not going to care. But and they're not going to be able to make the connections to you. But you can look up court records, property records, birth records, all kinds of things. If you know those 5. And I did this when I went back home. That led to other people. It's a question mark. That led to more people. This then led to more questions. And this led to even more questions. Because there was questions about, how did he get this job in Colorado? Did he work for a trucking company? That comes up on his actual credit report, by the way, FYI. And that's a completely different thing, and I can't tell you about how I got those records. But he never worked for a trucking company, but it comes up on his credit report. But he did work for a Ford dealership there and there. Why would he take a job, to move out to Colorado to work for a car dealership, and to be a mechanic, when he was making more money back home doing the same damn job? Ask yourself that question. But when you start looking for these 5, and you get these 5, you now have to sit down with like a piece of paper, write down at the top the questions that you want to answer. Well, I want to know, why did they move from Colorado out to Colorado? You write that down, and then you research that actual question. You can do the same thing again if you want to do puppy videos. What puppy is most loved? What puppy is the most rambunctious? Which puppy costs the most to raise? How much profit can I make if I'm selling puppies? You can do the same. Once you get the basic 5, the core of the question, you'll have the ability to answer all the other questions that are going to surround this. And then as the media came out and we learned about other people who were involved in this case, we learned a lot more. Now, I'm not going to get into confidential informants. Nope. This is just information that's on the public, information databases that are out there. I'm not going to get into private investigators. And I'm not going to get into the fact that the Weld County Jail and the DA's office was a sinking ship. It leaked so much information during this case that it was unfreaking believable. There is the address for the Weld County Jail, the phone numbers, and the DA's office. You want to do the... I'm missing a piece of tape there. There. There's the Weld County 3rd District Court. This is who you contact to get all that information, to get that key 5. Weld County, 3rd District, 901 9th Avenue, Greeley, Colorado. There's their zip code. They got a phone number too, but there's a couple of them that I can't give you because I've spent my entire life, again, building up these contacts and these sources. I know who to contact there directly to get the records and how to get them cheaper than you can. You can develop the same sources, put them down on a Rolodex, put them on a file in your computer, or put them in your cell phone, whatever you need to do. Whatever you feel is the easiest, best way to do it. But you can contact these people. Once you have contacts within there, you can find out more information. With the jail, I found out he was on suicide watch when he was first brought there after his initial arrest. The DA's office, I was able to find through contact. They're not going to just tell you directly off the over the phone. But if by the DA's office, I was able to find out that they had motions that were filed by the defense in this case to seal certain things and to have ex parte meetings with the actual DA, between the DA, the defense, and the judge. The three of them, and a court reporter, and probably a bailiff. But that was it. It was a closed hearings. And then there were ex parte meetings with just the defense and the judge, where they did not release information. They wanted certain things sealed and certain motions that were heard by the contact, my personal contact in the DA's office there. Again, if you go back to the first Christopher Watts video, I said I knew people in the jail, I knew people in the DA's office, and these two people were feeding me information. I also know people who practice law there in that area. And every bit of what I said can be factually supported now. You can go back and look at it all and say, well, look, he said here a week before the mainstream media put it out that Christopher Watts was doing this, or he was there, and this is when he got put on suicide watch. And now the records are available for anybody that wants them. And look who was right. The mainstream media is not going to tell you everything. They glance over just for the topics, the top pieces, the pieces that are going to draw you in to the actual case. They're going to feed you a little bit of information when it comes to a case like this. And they're going to miss all the little stuff. And all the little stuff is going to make you understand why this happened. You're going to want to know why they destroyed the evidence in the case. Why is it that Christopher Watts only gets two options to file an appeal, and he doesn't get all the other appeals and test the evidence? And what if they arrest Nicole? I've answered all of that already multiple times in live streams, videos, and everything else. I'm not going to waste my time to reply again, because I'm wasting your time and my time by addressing it all again. And we could go around and around and around about Christopher Watts. But again, so now you know the basics on how to do even the most basic research on a case. It doesn't have to be Christopher Watts. It can be anything. Again, it could be puppies. It could be, flowers, ordinances within your city. This is how you start off. This is how you start the research. I'm not going to get into, again, confidential informants. You can find people. This is the internet. With the internet and today, you can find people in every walk of life out there who you can develop a friendship with, who may be a confidential informant down the road. By pissing people off, you're not ever going to get the information. By stealing the content from another creator, such as myself and so many channels did, you're never going to be trustworthy. You're never going to come off as real. You're never going to be something more than what you are right now. And you're never going to get there by rehashing and reading the news word for word or memorizing it word for word. People want authenticity. They want the truth. And even if the truth hurts and doesn't make sense to them, like, why did Christopher Watts do it? My God, I've heard that 1,000 times. Without those, you're going to keep on going down the same rabbit hole. You're going to keep on, feel like you're, just barely treading water. Put the time in to do the research, and you will find the answers to your questions. We'll never know the psychological portion of why Christopher Watts did it, but let's just forget that this was about Christopher Watts. Let's move on to something else. You can use the same techniques to find information out about another case. But I will say right now, if you live in Massachusetts or Iowa or Nebraska, you're not going to be able to get all this information. The district court, superior courts in those states they're a little bit different. They run it. You more likely are going to need to know a buddy somewhere in those to get the actual information, because they don't release a lot on their websites. It's because they're lazy. But you can still get the information if you get up and physically go there. You have to go to the court. They're not going to put it on a website. And yet, it's going to cost you money. I spent a lot of money doing the research on Christopher Watts in the case. But you can do it yourself. And I know a lot of you really don't care. You really don't want to do the research. But I would hope that you would respect the fact that I actually did. Because I put a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of sweat and tears, especially tears, when I had to go through and do all this research. Because the shit that he did is unbelievable, unfathomable to me or anybody else out there who has compassion for another human being, especially a child. And what he did to those two girls and to his wife and his unborn son is unfathomable. How can you wrap your mind around that? Oh, thank you for joining me today here on this case and how to do research. I hope you learned something. Put a comment down below. Do all those YouTubey things. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you on the next video. You have a great day today.